with the internet.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the collective. What's up? How's it going? We technically a couple of seconds early this time.
I like that. I
Yeah,
like being a
getting
bit
better
early.
every day. This is it.
1
So
second better every day.
that's right. We were gonna have Yuri on yesterday, and due to some miscommunication on my part, we weren't able to have him on. Um, if we were gonna have him on to get in today, unfortunately, he doesn't have power in his building in the Ukraine, so he wouldn't be able to. Can't hook up with us today. So we're gonna completely move on. And I was gonna say to you before we started here was that uh, I had mentioned to him trying to get a timing sorted out, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem, so long as missiles don't rain down from the sky." And I was like, "Yeah, that's a hard, hard,
Yeah.
hard
Not
stop on
not
that one,
live podcasting from Victoria, BC.
right?" And then I asked him one day, I was like, "Do the Russians have like a specified time? Do they actually do they wait until it's dark and then launch? Do they, is there anything that you can kind of track?" And he's like, "Nah, they just whenever they come in, whenever they come in." And he was like,
Yeah.
"Why do you ask that?" I'm like, "Well, the Taliban used to there was like a specific time. They waited until it was dark and then waited just long enough for us to start dinner usually, and then started launching them at the base. So we had what we called cower hour, where we just hung out uh, in our bunkers.
In your fighting order in your
Yeah,
bunkers.
just hanging out, waiting for rockets to come in, and they usually would. And then we'd be like, "Okay, cool. Thanks for the gift, Taliban. We're gonna carry on with our day." But it's an interesting. He's been asking me lots of questions about like what I thought of the Afghans, what the
Mm,
insurgency was like, what kind of
mm.
fighting, what the fighting was like, that kind of stuff. So it's been interesting to get a different look at different styles of fighting.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, that's the great thing about having these kind of conversations is his perspective is different than,
Mm,
other folks, and so
yep.
it's good to have broad-ranging thoughts and discussions on these subjects. I dig it.
Yeah, me too. So today, what we're going to get into, I have some interesting stuff that we were talking about yesterday that we
All
said, you know
right. Yeah,
what, we
yeah.
should make this a podcast. And you know what? Hey,
That's right.
we're going to do it today. So
Well, let's do that.
the first one we're going to talk about is being a keener.
Oh, yes.
And this is it's one of those things that shouldn't be a shouldn't be a negative statement. And yet for some reason it becomes almost like a slur when, "Oh, look at that keener over there." And in case anybody doesn't know what a keener is somebody that is sharp. They are ready to go. They are keen to learn and grow and build. And I think maybe the connotation is used like a teacher's pet kind of deal. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, to some degree. I think you're right. As a teacher's pet, that is an aspect of it, but it's only one of several aspects that I believe kind of dial up that term of keener.
Mm,
But I think to start off the conversation on keener, I'd just like to say this that the term keener, when it's used in a derogative way, or dude, you're a keener, man. You
hmm
suck because you're a keener. When someone is saying it that way, it's because they suck.
Yeah.
And they don't want to rise to the occasion. They don't want to be the best version of themselves. They don't want to try harder because it's too much work.
Mm,
And you know how it's all twisted and wrong and inverted when someone says, dude, you suck because you're a keener. I mean, aren't we all
Jesus.
supposed to be keeners, if not for ourselves, to do our best in life, but
hmm
freaking for the team? So it used to drive me bananas in the regular army when someone would say, "You're a keener, man."
Yeah.
Like what? Oh, so it's cool to drag the team down. It's cool to not be optimal for the team. It's cool to suck. Is that what you're saying? Because I really don't vibe with that. So anytime anyone hit me with "you're a keener," which I kind of got hit with a fair bit, I just it didn't synchronize with me, man. Because you call me a keener, immediately in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, that's because you suck.
Yeah. I wish I had made that correlation earlier in my life, because I was called a keener quite a bit when I first got in, and then I just slowly was like, okay, well, I guess that's not the way to do it. Because at the time, you're looking around, you kind of want to be a part of the team, right? You want to be a part of the group, but when when you start getting called out in front of everybody, which is the sad part, because as you said, you should look at the keener and be like, yeah, let's all do that. Right? Like, if you had a team that, well, we do have teams like that. They're called JTF2. Right?
True.
Like that's the mentality you have to have in order to be in that team, where everybody's looking, going like, ooh, that guy rocked that run today. I'm going to beat him tomorrow. Or that guy, there's a, not a level of comparison, but a level of competition.
Oh, 100%. And
Yeah.
it is strong.
Hmm.
It's a strong competitive drive. And I would say this, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for every guy that I worked with in JTF2, but I think it'd be a fair generalization, using myself as the example. But again, I'm only speaking for myself when I say this. I'm really competitive with me. I compete against me. I'm always competing against Shaun. But
Hmm.
while I'm doing that, it just turns out that I also look to my left and right and I'm competing against people around me. It's not that I'm trying to beat everyone around me. I am. I'm trying to beat me for sure. And so, it's a competitive drive that when you're in a hyper competitive environment, which is generally what the tip of the spear is, everyone's looking to their left and right to try to half inch everyone. You just
Mm.
want to keep you want to stay ahead, so everyone has to kind of keep pulling ahead of each other. It's an organism that
Yeah.
just demands more and more and more excellence.
Mm. So it's more, again, I look at more as like a continual motivational video, right? But watching somebody beside you
Oh yeah.
beat you by just a little bit,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
like, oh, okay, okay, I see where we're going, right? And
Yeah,
then
and
just,
like it's happening so often that in a competitive environment, there's so many competitions going on at so many levels, so many layers in the real time, never mind about what happened that morning or what's going to happen that afternoon. I mean, in the real time, there's so much layers of competitiveness within yourself and with all those around you. And sometimes it's overt and sometimes it isn't. But regardless of what it is, you all know that it's game on. Always game on.
mm-hmm,
And you got to earn your day, as the saying goes. Earn that seat.
mm,
And if you want to earn, you can't switch off. You're earning all the time. Um, and to earn in real time means that you got to be pushing the pace. You got to push the envelope. You got to drive hard, and everyone else is doing the same thing. And when you see the line surging in front of you, you got to get back up into the extended line. You got to match velocity. You
mm-hmm.
can't have the extended line pull ahead of you, and now you're putting rounds down range while the extended line is now 50 feet in front of you.
Yeah,
Negative.
that's no bueno.
That ain't gonna happen. So what
No.
you got to do is you got to dig deep and stay up with the extended line and do your thing. And so if you're in a hard charging crew that are all keeners, which they should be in order to be the best version of themselves at the best tip of the spear, everyone's a keener. If you want to play that game, you got to be a keener. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Now, does that not lend itself to burnout at times, when you have everybody pushing each other to the brink and then some? Does that not eventually, you're going to start losing people? You're going to start,
Well, it is a young man's game.
yeah. Well, it's a good point.
I mean, I'll say this. So I turned 60 this year,
Hmm.
and so was 30 years old, or I hit the teams when I was 29. So half my age right now. I couldn't do now what I did then. And I'm not even talking about the physical aspects. My body isn't capable of doing those things anymore because, I mean, that was super freak stuff. So I couldn't do that now. But what I couldn't do is keep the pace on even the cerebral load. I mean,
Mm,
there was just a lot going on in the real time. It wasn't just a 1 + 1 = 2. It was like a beautiful mind, weird, fuzzy algorithms that you had to solve in real time that you hardly even understood, but you solved them. Like it
mm,
was complex real time problems that you just had to be a super keener in order to do it. Which, I'm still a keener, but I wouldn't be able to operate in real time now like I did then. I don't have the razor sharp intellectualism right now that I did. That I was peak Sean. I'm not peak
mm.
Sean now. I'm wiser Sean, not peak Sean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a I was listening to a podcast at one point in time. They were saying that uh, the reason why the military, especially, is the young man's game, especially special operations, is the fact that as you get older, like you can keep the body in pretty good shape through a lot if you're smart about it. But the the challenge is that as you get a little bit older, the level of uh, risk that you take on starts to uh, stream off, right? As like a 20-year-old, like when I was in Afghanistan, I never thought I was going to make it to 30. I was like, whatever. Right? Like I had no thought beyond what I was doing in those moments. Um, and for most 20-year-olds, that makes sense, right?
Mhm.
We don't think beyond that. Whereas when you're 40, when you're 50, and you're like, oh well, I still got like another 30 years left, and I don't want to just keel over and die right now. What do I do? So your level of risk acceptance changes, and that's where you have those young guys that are still running around doing crazy stuff because they can and because they don't really think of the consequences. Maybe not think of the consequences, but truly like grasp the consequences.
Yeah.
uh, versus now when you're older and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I probably would not do that right now.
Well, the interesting thing is, I said peak Sean, at
Yeah.
30 years of age, or whenever I peaked out as a physical specimen. I'm still peak Sean, but
Mhm.
I'm peak me, peak now, not
Yeah.
peak then. And so I'm contextualizing against peak high performance physical Sean versus peak Sean now, who is less physical capability. And that's now balanced against maybe wisdom or intellectualism or whatever. I don't know. I've filled the gap of being able to do all of the magical things that I did back in the day, which I can't do now because that's not my role.
Yeah.
So I filled the gap with other things to be peak Sean today, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I like the idea of being of like riding that peak. It's almost if you I was just got this image in my head of like surfing, of riding that wave, and that wave's going to change and adjust, and you're going to have to
100%.
change and adjust with it. And that first moment when you go over the edge and you jump on your board, that's super exciting, and it's all downhill, and you're like, woo! But eventually, you have to kind of catch that wave and try to ride the tube and go from there. Um,
Yeah, well, to use that example of surfing, and I don't surf. Charlie don't surf.
I don't surf either.
Uh,
I
so
pictured it in my head.
I don't surf, but I do understand the mechanics of it. I've watched
Mhm.
enough of it. I can speak about it, metaphorically, I suppose. Um, the interesting thing to me about surfing is on day one, you're just trying to figure out how not to drown. And then day 100, you're trying to like go over that lip. And then day 1000, you're riding that trough.
Mhm.
And now you're 10,000 days into it and you've done it all. What are you doing? Any ideas what you're doing?
Bigger waves, bigger
You've done
like
all the big waves. What are you
done
what are
all
you
of them.
doing next? At 10,000 days of surfing. Any ideas?
I would think like tricks. I would think you're trying to hit certain. I've
You've
seen some
done all
pretty
the
crazy stuff.
tricks. You've
Okay,
done
I
all the
don't know.
challenges.
I don't know.
J-
What do you do?
Any just a guess.
I've given you a couple
Okay, I know.
years.
I'm just seeing if I could refine it somehow.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's an easy guess. So at least this is what I do, and I think this is what anyone does when they reach a level of. I'm going to use a term that is difficult for me to say, but whenever you reach a certain level of excellence,
Mm,
and by saying that, I'm now stating that I reached a certain level of excellence, which is a difficult word for me to say because I don't like saying I'm excellent. Um, you reach a certain level of excellence, and at that point, you've done all the tricks and all of the stuff. I now try to become an artist. I
mm,
try to, if I'm now surfing and I've done 10,000 days of surfing and I've done it all, what am I doing next? I'm trying to be aesthetic. I'm trying to be an artist. I'm trying to paint with my surf paintbrush or
trying to
whatever the
create.
case is. I'm trying to create beauty. I'm trying to create
Mm-hmm.
art.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I ride now. I've I've got so many hours of riding. I couldn't even tell you how many.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the way, I didn't do all the things, but I did all the things that I wanted to do, and it was a lot in bike racing. And so it's at a certain point I became an artist. I was less interested in winning and I was more interested in creating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same with coaching, that creative spirit of trying to do something in a richer, deeper, more complex way, a three-dimensional way of life. Coaching to me then became not about trying to create a win for the athlete, but it became a journey, trying to create a journey for the athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to be a keener, I would say this, trying to bring it back to so we're not tangenting off too much. To be a keener, I think there's a couple of different ways you can look at it. When you're first starting off, your keenerism is a bit like a laser beam, straight down the tube.
Mm-hmm.
You're driving towards an outcome that you have target locked on very cleanly and you want to execute against, and you're going to get it done. You're going to keenly execute against that outcome. But along the way, somewhere along the way, once you've keenerismed enough, you'll start to see with a few keener stacks some successes, some trend on what a keener can create. You should be able to see a body of work that then allows you to figure out, oh, it's not just a thing, it's a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything that you do in life can then become, at least it is for me, I have a keener approach to everything, all of it now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to be a rich, nuanced, complex individual who just wants to do better. That to me is a keener rather than that singular laser beam focus of I want to become the best javelin thrower in the world. Forget about the javelin throw. That's just a single-minded target that you're locking on to actually do what's more important. That is observe the journey in a richer and more nuanced perspective so that you can appreciate the three-dimensionality of life, I would say.
Ooh, I got a great question from Satch here. Look at
Oh
this.
yeah, okay. I
What's
like
up,
it.
Satch? First off, how's it going? Thanks for watching.
Hey.
How does one become a keener when the environment isn't open to keeners? That's a great question. That is a great question.
It's a great question. I mean, I faced it. I mean, everyone faces it in the military, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I believe so.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd say this that I don't know how it is now for guys and girls in the military who are new to that military game and they are a keener or presenting keenerism. I don't know how the system responds to that nowadays, but back when I was a young buck and being a keener, it did not respond well. The military back then didn't care for young, hard charging soldiers to some degree, because a lot of the established leadership or command and control, as senior NCOs, as an example. I'm not going to throw all senior NCOs under the bus. There were some freaking rock stars who were amazing, but less so rather than more so. We needed more awesome rather than less awesome. And at that time, as I saw it, there was less awesome. And because they didn't want to rock the boat. They didn't want to work too hard. They didn't want to run extra. They didn't want to jump on that chin up bar, because that's all work. That's hard work. Because they didn't want to do the hard work, they wanted to shut the hard work down. They didn't want to lead by example and ask more of everyone around them. They wanted to ask less. And so as soon as someone popped up as a keener, not just me, but some of my buddies who were keeners as well, I can think of as young sergeants back in 3 PPC Allied. There was a crew of us that were young, hard charging, super keen, and that was that was a struggle for the system at the time, because too many keeners in one spot changes things, and people fear change. And people fear an additional velocity, because it's uncomfortable, because that's not what they want, because that's not they just don't see the advantages to being better as an organization even. And so keenerism back in the day was difficult. So to the question, how does one become a keener when the environment isn't open to keeners? This is how I did it. Screw your nonsense. I'm going to do me. Because as I see it, you can all pick up the pace, because I am. So let's get after it. That's what I thought. I just held my space. And if anyone chirped at me, I just look them in the eye and say, what's the problem? That's it. That's the end of the conversation. What is the problem?
Yeah.
Because now what are they going to say? Dude, you're doing too good.
The one we always got, the one I always got was, "You're making us look bad."
Oh, I know that. I've heard it many a time.
Yeah. It's
And what's the answer to that?
at the time, my answer was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that we were all being compared to each other." But
Yeah, my answer is pick up the pace.
pick up the pace. See, that's a great answer, and I didn't have that answer at the time. I wish I did, because that would have been awesome. But you're right, because if you want something, if you really, really want something, give her. Just freaking give her. Like, put
Yeah,
your whole body and soul into it.
And it should start with, if you want something for yourself, give her. You don't have to externalize the objective, in the sense of, if you want something, that gold trophy, give her. Don't even worry about the trophy.
Yeah.
If you want something for yourself, give her. And that for yourself should be an internal objective. It should be something as simple as, I suck. I want to get better. Bam. There you go. Now you've got something to sink your teeth into. And if you think, I rock, okay, I want to rock more. Good. Now you've got something to sink your teeth into. If you say to yourself inside your little peanut internally, I'm a freaking superstar, okay. The next thing you should say is, but I want to be more of a superstar. Good. Get after it. That's how the head should work. It shouldn't be a case of, everyone around me sucks, I'm going to be a keener and outperform them. Well, maybe that is reality, because maybe you're on a team that does suck, and maybe you are a superstar, maybe you are performing them, and blah, 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 whatever. But you shouldn't externalize like that. You should demand more of yourself before you even think about looking at everyone around you.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking at everyone around you and you're thinking, you all suck, I'm a superstar, and you're going to suck forever, well, that's also crazy talk, because what you should be doing is looking at everyone and thinking, man, we all need to pull up our socks as a team. How am I going to execute against that? How am I going to influence the team around me? How am I going to make all of us better? Well, you can lead by example, of course, by demonstrating that you can run faster than a 4-day long 4-minute mile.
Yep.
What you should be doing is demonstrating that the standard, whatever it is, you can outperform the standard and stand on the finish line. And as everyone's running to the finish line as underperforming against the standard, now you can cheer them on and say, good work, blah, 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 chirp, 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 encourage them, etc., so that they can see that you can exceed the standard. You can still support the team. And when that's all said and done, the next day, you can sidle up next to that guy who was the slowest runner and say, hey, pal, let's go for a run. I noted that while you were running, your shoelaces are undone. Let's address that. Let's get your shoelaces tied. Okay, now we're running. I noted that when you were running sideways. That's
Mhm.
not as effective and efficient a way
Not
to
very
run.
efficient, yeah.
Let's point your nose forward and let's run forward. Oh, I noted that while you were running, your nose was way behind your butt, when actually what you need is your nose in front of your knees in order to start running forward. So let's address that. I noted that when you came to a hill and you were running, just like we are right now, pal, you leaned backwards rather than leaned into the hill. You kind of started walking, leaning backwards when I need you running, leaning forward. So let's do that this morning. Let's go run up that hill together, etc., etc. Start building the team in a manner that the team shows you are supporting the team.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I was actually going to ask a question, but I answered my question as you were talking about it. But
Mm,
I'm gonna I'm gonna state it anyway because I think it's a great point. Initially, I realizing what my issue was, or not, maybe not realizing so much as reassessing what my issue was initially, was as a keener, as someone that was exceeding the standards. I was watching as people who are not living up to the standards were receiving the same treatment, in that um, and that all of the effort that I was putting in was not being I'm trying to think of the word now, but I can't think of it. But um, acknowledged. Let's put it that way. So I
yeah, but
wasn't getting any
but
of the
did you need
recognition.
acknowledgement?
And this is what I answered my own question with, was is that if I was doing it for the acknowledgement, or question the real question is, was I doing it for the acknowledgement? And at the time, I think I was.
Most people did.
And that's
I never
where,
did. I didn't
and so
care.
there you go. That's where I
Doesn't
was
matter
thinking,
to me, and it still doesn't matter to me.
yep.
Whatever I do, if anyone sees it and pats me on the back, I actually feel weirdly uncomfortable. But if I get to do what I want to do and crush it and lead by example and act like a keener and all of that stuff, which is how I'm wired, I guess, I don't care if anyone sees it, except in one instance that is imperative to me as to the advantage of someone seeing what I'm doing. If hopefully it shapes their trajectory via leadership by example.
Yeah.
If someone sees me crushing it and thinks, if that skinny old goofy dude can crush it, I sure as heck should be able to crush it as well.
Yeah.
For all of you guys out there that are half my age, that are brushing the Dorito crumbs off right now, thinking you can't do it, whatever. Shake your head. Actually, shake off the Dorito crumbs
To shake off the
and
Dorito bag
pick up the
slippers.
pace. Honestly,
Get those
because
Dorito bag slippers off.
the difference between you and me at twice your age is that I'm a freaking keener. And you know how you're thinking right now, brushing off the Dorito crumbs, dude, that you're not a keener? That's your mindset. Everyone can be a keener,
Mhm.
except for all of the guys out there who don't want to do the work and now want to point a finger at people who are trying to be their best, exceeding the standard. If you're not meeting the standard, if you're underperforming against the standard and you're pointing at the Keeners of the world, shake your head, change it all around, reframe who you are and what you want to be, and change it in a split second. Brush off the Dorito crumbs, think, I want to be a Keener, and then get after it.
That's really all it takes.
That's
And
all it takes.
it's literally as simple as that. And it just takes one, I guess, so long as you keep your you keep your goals achievable.
And
Put it that way.
forget about that. Forget about the goals. The goals don't even have to exist right now for you to change your mindset. You
Oh
don't
yeah,
have to
for sure.
you don't have to do push-ups and then think, "Oh, now I'm on my way to Keenersville."
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do a freaking thing. You can be mid Dorito crumb brushing and you can think, "That's it. I'm tired of this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna become a Keener now." And that's the action. The mindset switch is the push-up.
Mm,
And then you just get after it, and whatever get after it means to you. If it means go try to find the rusty old chin-up bar that you haven't been on in 15 years, well, go find it. Now you're off to Keenersville. It
yeah.
doesn't matter if you do a chin-up today. Just the very act that you're going to go try to find the rusty bar. Oh, now you're in the game.
Yeah. Satch says endurance improves with age. It's science.
Well, you know what? There is some science to that, and that's the truth. In
Makes sense.
fact, the one of the toughest age categories to race in as a 24-hour solo world champion is around that kind of 35 to 45 years of age. Holy, that's an intense category. I mean, if there's the pro category, which I've raced it in pro cats, and then there's the age categories. And the age categories, though not as difficult as racing as a pro, holy, it's cutthroat, man, because it's old dudes who've been in the game and they've got some resilience. They're like a walnut, but a smart walnut. And man, when it's game on, these guys don't crack easily.
Mm. Yeah, I can imagine. I got a tournament coming up for jiu-jitsu, and it's the 40-year-old plus 220 and up in the heavyweights. And there's some I got nine other people in my bracket. It's going to be an interesting.
Where are they all from? Are they from the province, or are they traveling from out of province, or what?
Most of them are from the province. I think one I saw was from BC. I'd have to look it up again, but there were a
Okay,
couple from
well,
out of province.
it's not just a little local show then.
No, this is the True North Grappling.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So there's quite a few people. It's going to be a great tournament that I'm looking forward to in it. I'm trying to figure out my game plan for it. So that's
Well, I think part of your game plan, as we discussed the other day, is it shouldn't take you 3 fights to figure out that you're in a fight.
that's the first part. Yeah, that is the first part of the game.
So before you reach out and tap and bump, you're thinking this time, Burrows.
Yes, exactly. Roger that, Warren. Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good test of my skill set, and I've never had this kind of depth in an age group before. So I'm going to have a lot of fights, which is going to be interesting to see.
Well, one way to look at it, you're right. It's going to be an interesting test of your skills. But what you should be doing as you're looking ahead to that competition is considering I'm looking forward to learning a lot about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but I'm not, because words matter when we're
Right.
framing our considerations, or framing what we hope for ourselves, or framing our future. And so, yeah, you're going to test yourself, of course. I mean, it's freaking jujitsu. But you should be looking forward to what you're going to learn. And that should change your mindset, not only as you approach the event, but it should change your mindset while you're in the event, like in real time competing, because testing yourself is a little more scrappy.
Yeah.
But learning about yourself is a little bit more free flow, intellectual, Zen, Bruce Lee, Miyamoto, Masashi, et cetera, in a big soup bowl, stir it all up. And that's what you're trying to be.
Yeah.
Those are two completely different approaches, but the sentences aren't too different if you're
They're
not thinking about it.
they're pretty similar on
On
on the
level
same
one.
on level one, exactly. They're when you actually start going to depth of it, you're right. Testing myself is, I mean, I do that every day when I go to jiu-jitsu. That's I test myself. The key thing that you're right is I want to learn more about myself, where my capabilities lie, where my endurance lies, how quickly I can engage a fight versus not. Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting next. It's actually next week, so
Yeah,
this time.
back onto Keenerville,
Hmm.
Keenerism. Um, as a keener, this is how you're testing yourself based on how you want to test yourself, at which level you want to test yourself, what outcome you want for yourself, etc. So, speaking about BJJ and the upcoming competition next weekend, I think you said,
Yep.
um, you know, you get to define what kind of keener you want to be in that moment based on how much pre-thought you're giving it before you enter into that competitive arena. If you want to think level one, well, now you're a level one keener. If you want
Hmm.
to think level 10, well, now you're a level 10 keener. Which level do you want to operate at? It depends on how new you are to the game. If it's day one and you want to think at level 10 keenerism, man, you just missed 9 levels of learning. And so you got to figure out who you are, where you are in the journey, and what you expect of yourself, and how much you want to push your envelope, and how much you want to learn about new things that you don't know anything about. But do you want to punch forward 12 levels that you shouldn't be at versus 12 levels back where you should be at in order to learn the lesson? You got to figure out the game. You got to
Hmm.
figure out tactically and strategically what the game is that you're playing, not just the game next week, but the game of life. Everyone
Hmm.
has to do that, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been, I'm not maybe avoiding thinking about it,
Everyone
w-
does.
and I've recently just started going like, okay, you know what? It's a week away. Literally next Saturday is when I'm going to be doing it, and I'm working on a, like with my training partner. I'm working on a plan, and I'm working
Oh,
on if this goes wrong, then
definitely.
there's this. If there's this, then that. But on top of that, I'm thinking more along the lines of what is it that I want out of this, right? Because I don't care about a medal. I don't care about winning. I don't care. What I want,
Yeah,
what
you
I'm trying
do.
to figure out.
You do
Well,
care.
I like winning, sure, but I don't
No,
really
no.
care.
Let's not brush over that. Yeah, you do care. Everyone does.
Okay.
It's a matter of how much do you care.
Okay.
You can't blankly say I don't care because we all care. Everyone
Okay.
cares.
I'll give you that. Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
prioritizing the win over the learn, now that's where things go a little astray.
Hmm.
So that would be my point.
That's a great point. And I think thinking on it just briefly, what I really want out of this is to turn the switch. That's what I want. I want to be able to turn the
Mm.
switch, and that I've always struggled with it. Like I said, it's taken me quite a while, and that's what I'm going to work on. So
Well, that's good. It's
yeah.
it's good to have goals like that, but what does that mean to you turning on the switch? Because let me preface it so I'm not like misguiding you with a goofy open question, and then we start talking about climbing mountains. Um, what does that mean to you turning on the switch? Because at one level, it could mean now you're going to incorporate some more aggression. And so that could be turning on the switch, initiating instantly with some additional aggression. Or turning on the switch could be I'm going to stand there neutrally, be like water, and determine what my actions are based on what I feel in the moment. And that can be a real time play
Mhm.
that still is turning on the switch, but requires less overt aggression. It just requires real time reaction where you're shaping the outcome rather than being a part of the outcome. And so flipping the switch, turn it on, turn it off, whatever that means to you, that can mean many different things depending on how someone frames it in their mind. So what does it mean to you?
Turning on the switch for me is, as you said, being in that moment, feeling the jujitsu. That's it's turning on the switch. And it, like I said the other day, it happens usually 2-3 rolls in is where I finally at the point where I go, right, and I actually my whole body slows down. And I start feeling for the efficiencies, and I start feeling for what is being given and what can I give and how do I get what I want, instead of I'm getting this takedown and then I'm getting that and then I'm getting this. It is just more what's being offered. And once I want to be able to turn that on rather than wait for it to turn on. I want to be able to just like, okay, it's on now,
Yeah.
and go.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting. And this is obviously not what we intended to talk about, BJJ. And now we're about to talk about your shooting, dry firing. I was watching your dry firing yesterday.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's fun. It's fun that you guys are doing that. I dig it.
Yeah.
But as I was watching, I was thinking, oh, now it's starting to make sense. And so when you were standing there waiting for your dry fire, this is kind of what you were doing.
Yeah, my fingers. Yeah. Yep.
You had all your magic Lucky Rabbit's foot moves.
Yep.
And so before you went to draw, you had to go through 37 sequences in order to be able to draw. And that's because you've created those, baby.
Yep.
You've manufactured all of these goofy little routines that are
I got
completely
the video loaded up.
unnecessary.
You want me to put it up?
No, well, I mean, if you want to, but
I got the video. Let me throw
let's
it up
do
there.
that. All right, just so
Boom.
everyone knows what we're talking about.
Here it is. So
Time
this
to
is my
dance.
And this is the thing. I'm judging in real time. There you go. There are the fingers.
Yeah, and now you can't do what you need to do until you do all the things that you don't need to do.
Yeah. And this is why I put it up there, is that by no means am I a pistolier. And by no,
you don't have to be, of course.
I have very little actual training on the pistol, just basically what I've watched and tried to figure out. One thing I did notice while I was watching is that I hover my finger over the trigger in the reloads, and my finger goes onto the trigger as I reset.
Well, there's a lot of things.
There's a lot
of things. There's a lot of things that could be cleaned up. That wouldn't be the point of this. The only point on this video or this discussion would be that before you actually pull the trigger, you're doing all kinds of songs and dances.
Yeah.
And so let's stretch it. Let's pretend that it's only 3 or 4 seconds of nonsense before you actually get on with pulling a trigger. You need to strip all of those things out because they're the equivalent of days of nonsense. All the routines that you got to do, got to do the robot before I can step out the door.
Turn the light on and off 3 times.
Got to do a dance before I pull on my shoes. and it's all of the things that people now this is not directed at you, of course, but you are the example.
Yeah.
Lots of people developing subroutines that are unnecessary in order to execute against the routine that they're really primarily concerned about. So for you as an example within BJJ, let's generalize and say it takes you at least 3 rolls until you turn on your brain.
Yeah.
And so that's unnecessary. But that's what you've bought into. That's a subroutine that you've created over a period of time where you self-believe that, I don't think until I've been doing jiujitsu for 15 minutes. That's your routine that you created, which is completely a lie. And so same with the pistol draw. All of those subroutines that are a pile of nonsense before you draw, all self-created. You continue to allow them. In fact, you don't even feel like you can draw until you do all of your subroutines. And that's how entrenched it becomes over a period of time, unless you observe your subroutines, apply Occam's razor, which you and I had a laugh about, I think, in the first podcast that you and I ever did way back in the day, and apply Occam's razor, strip out the unnecessary actions, that allow you to still achieve the outcome and
Mm-hmm.
see what the bare bones results can teach you. So you've got to analyze your subroutines to strip out unnecessary subroutines.
This is why I love taking why I like doing videos. And actually, you and I were talking about this a while
Mm,
back, was the fact that I usually record myself when I do dry fires so that I can watch, so I can see my form and I can, try and mitigate some of those things.
mm.
I hadn't even realized I was doing them up until
Yes, that's the beauty of
when I
the
filmed them.
digital eye, man. The
Yeah,
cold eye review. It's a great tool, and more people should use them. In fact, if you throw up that video again, I'll point out one more
sure.
thing for you. Watch your left shoulder and
Okay.
how your left shoulder angle crosses your center line. See there?
Yep.
If you want to think of yourself as an isosceles, see how you're canted.
Yep.
Your right shoulder drops, your left shoulder goes up, you're off center line. Now, I noticed this when you put up another video a couple of weeks ago or whatever. I'd
Hmm.
looked at it, and what you do is you draw your off center line, and then when you go to take your second shot, you actually square up,
Hmm.
but you don't on your first draw. It's only
Ah,
it's only when you start engaging that you actually square up your center line. You see how your head's all canted over.
Yep.
Your right ear's now on your right shoulder, and it kind of devolves because you're not considering structural excellence or structural
Mm.
continuity, adopting each time the precise, identical angle that you
Hmm.
did in the one previous. And so, by not being strict in your form, you're not forming a baseline or a trend that you can observe and realize, oh, my trend, which is precisely the same for the last 40 draws. I'm noticing now that my bullets are dot, 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 or
Yep.
I'm noticing that my dot, dot, or my time dot, dot, dot. That you need to make a consistent effort in order to figure out how to consistently improve.
Hmm.
And so when you go back and watch the video from a couple of weeks ago, watch your form and how your structure kind of collapses on your draw, and then you correct it as you're further into the action. You'll have to you'll
Mm.
see it now
Yeah.
that you're thinking it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is again why I put them up there. And you know what? It took quite a bit for me to actually put these up there, because I was,
Yeah,
you watch
sure.
them over and over and over again, and I was
Yeah,
getting self-conscious about it,
of
and then I was
course.
like,
You got some pride.
you know what? Doesn't matter. I am a noob, first off, when it comes to pistol
It's
work.
kind of true. Yeah.
I am straight up a noob, and I'm okay with that. So I was like, after some thought, after some back and forth in my own brain of like, oh well, nobody needs to see this. It's not gonna help anybody. But then you know what? It
Do you
is
know
gonna
who
help
needs to
people.
see it? You. And when you see it the most is when it's not hidden in the shadows.
Yep.
When you put it out there for everyone to put eyeballs on, now you gotta own it.
Yep.
And now you get to think, "Oh my goodness, do I wanna get better or not?" Because like, when all of your, glaring errors, and I'm not speaking about you, Chance, I'm talking about whoever's listening, all of your glaring errors that you are aware of because you know that they're there, you never address them quite with the same velocity as when the entire internet sees them. So
Yep.
if you want to hide in the shadows and pretend that you're a Rad Master 9000, that's cool if that's how your head works. But the moment that there's a spotlight on you and now you're not Rad Master 9000, you get to decide, do I
Yep.
get to work or do I keep on pretending?
Yeah, and that's it. This is
And that's
why
it.
that's why I put stuff out there, man. This is why I started the podcast. This is why I started everything else, was the fact that I don't get better unless I can get an outside look at it. Because, and whether that outside look is just filming myself and looking at it again and then comparing it to other people. Um, I don't mean like specifically better or worse. I mean looking at an example and going, "Oh,
Yeah, you got to
I'm not doing things right."
contextualize.
Right. But again, that's why I put it out there, is so that not only can other people see the growth, but they can see either, hey, I'm not quite up to where Chance is, or I'm doing better than my form is better than Chance's, or whatever.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
it gives context. Now I got a
Well,
couple.
it's useful for you, and it's
Yeah,
useful for the team around you.
win-win-win. I like it. I got some comments here from Sachi.
Hang on a
Let's see.
sec. I'd just
Okay,
like
you
to
got a
add
point.
this that yeah, I think it's important that we don't pass this.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of the song. It kind of went like dun 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 dun. I don't remember what song it was, but when you're doing your little fingers as you're about to draw, that's all I can
Yeah.
think of is that little rap song or the back in the day song. And it was when the song's playing, there's a bunch of not dummies, but mannequins, and they're on
Mm.
strings and they're all dancing around to that song. I was like, oh, Chance Burl's dancing around before he can pull that trigger.
This is good, man. Again, more information for me. So stop dancing before shooting. That's probably a
That's
good one
right.
to start with. Well, that's a great point. So a couple comments from Satch. Chance, you should have done open division. I mean, I could. Actually, I looked into it. The open division for here is only open to people in the top 3 of each division can then enter the
That's
open
not
division afterwards.
uncommon. Yeah.
So we have to go from there. So maybe if
You
I
have to
do well,
win.
if I
You have to
win,
get on that
cool.
podium.
I'll jump on that. I'm okay with that. What does it mean to turn on the switch? Yeah, I think we answered that. But it is to start feeling jujitsu. And you know what? Actually, a good point on this was, had I thought deeper on this, I would have recognized it sooner. There was a day I was talking to a friend of mine. I had missed the fundamentals class that we do first, um, the beginners class, and then we do an advanced class after on. So I do 2 hours worth of training, and I missed the fundamentals class, and I went into the advanced class. And I had such a hard time just trying to keep up and trying to figure out what the moves were, and like my body didn't seem to be responding. And I told somebody that I prefer doing the fundamentals class right away because it gets my mind into kind of jujitsu brain. And then I do the advanced class, and I have a much better workout. I have much better form and technique, and I can respond better and all these things. But that's what the switch is. That was I was allowing myself the time to kind of work my way into it rather than
Yeah, you were more of a
going.
dimmer switch than an
Yeah,
actual switch.
yeah, exactly.
I'll
So,
say this, buddy, that here's how I've operated for a long time. I can go from 0 to 60 in a split second.
mhm,
I mean, for real. It's just that's how I've been for a long time, but that's what was taught to me, that I don't need to do a song and dance to start dancing. I if I look at you and think go time, it's done.
yeah,
It's gone. The go is being gone. And so I don't need to do any stretches. I don't need to do any burpees
no limbering up.
to flick the switch. I can flick the switch with a bag of Doritos on my chest if I have to. So the in fact, funny story. I don't know if it's funny or not, but last night our youngest son Keegan was coming back late from work, and he's working up at a Thai restaurant here in town. And he came in real late, and I was in my comfy chair doing my comfy thing, and the door opened because it's so late. It was like nearly 11 o'clock at night. The
Mhm.
door opened without much. The dog didn't bark. Hearing him walking up the steps, maybe he ninja stealthed up, but the door opened, and I snapped my head to look at it, and I target locked. I target locked on the door because it was unexpected, and my son Evan, who was also sitting there, just said, "Hey Keegan, you just got murked," because the look that I locked on the door, like flick that switch in a
Yeah,
split second.
yeah.
Yeah, He kind of did. I didn't have to get out of my chair or anything, but it was game on
Yeah.
and target lock switch. But I can flick that switch on in a split second, and I can flick it off in a split second. It's
Mm,
not that once it gets flicked on, it stays on. It's a switch that
yeah.
has an up and down mode, and I get to choose when to flick up and when to flick down. But I can tell you this, over many years, I know how to flick it quick.
hmm And I've had that. Like I've been threatened before when I guess feel threatened. Like I had a dude pull a knife on me at one point in time. I've had a few bad things happen to me where the switch turned on and like it went game time in an instant. But it wasn't me flicking the switch, if you know what I mean. Like switch just turned on and I went from being normal me to I'm gonna kill you me.
Mm,
And and then as you said, I didn't have that. It was like I had to wait for my body to come down
mm.
because I was now here. I went from
Makes sense.
normal to I'm gonna kill you, and then that took me a few hours, and I had to go through the whole police report and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, that's a great point because that takes training,
Well,
takes
you
time
weren't
and
an
effort.
you weren't an active participant in your own process.
Nope,
And
not at
and in
all.
order to be an active participant, even if you've never been, even if you don't even know where your light switch is, you've got to get involved in finding the switch in the room.
hmm
And then once you found your switch, then you got to start, moving it up and moving it down.
Yep.
And getting better at that and observing yourself when you flick it, how long it takes you to execute against it, and how long it takes you to come down off it. And then you got to start narrowing that bandwidth and playing around with it, getting better at the switch.
hmm
And so on day 0 before I joined the military, I had a switch that I didn't understand very well. At some point in my military career, I was taught how to use that switch really well. And so it's not a passive participation. The knowledge just doesn't fall in your lap on day
Yeah.
1. You've got to observe it. You've got to know what you're observing. And once you know what you're observing and you've observed it long enough, you've got to figure out what the lessons are in it.
Yeah.
It's an active process.
Absolutely. Um, because there are things that I can actively work on, but they were drilled into me. They were trained into me. Um, for instance, well, I can't say now. My machine controls are probably rusty beyond recognition at this point. But when I was running my C9 back in the day, those were I could turn that on and off in a heartbeat, and
Yeah, but
it
those are
didn't.
skills.
Yeah,
Those aren't emotions.
no, but
And there's many things that are going on when you're flicking a switch.
yeah, what I mean is that I had a very um, I had a small grasp of what it was, and I didn't understand how deep that went, how deep that skill set could go. I had it at a very fundamental level in how I could use those skill sets and use the emotional, my autonomic nervous system in order to kind of carry that on. But I didn't have the depth of understanding of myself and what it was that my switch was in order to do it. So that yeah, it just takes more time, more training, more looking deeper, more development,
Do
I
you know
guess.
what came to mind in order to get the point across a little more clearly, not to you, Chance, but to anyone who's listening, or maybe to you, who knows, whatever.
Yeah.
Just the point is this: that considering you standing there rubbing the lucky rabbit's foot before you pull that trigger, which
Jazz hands.
like if you allow that subroutine to continue its natural evolution, 2 years from now you'll literally be doing a Michael Jackson dance before you
Yep.
can draw that pistol out of the holster. It'll be the full song, not
Mhm.
just a few seconds. And so that's what subroutines do if you're not paying attention to them. They they miscalibrate themselves.
Mm.
That's the outcome of not being present, of not knowing what you're doing. That's just the way it is. It's not paying attention to subroutines. So by stripping out subroutines, now you're paying attention. But one thing that you can do to help strip out your subroutine and simultaneously challenge your autonomous or your autonomic system is stand there and say, I'm going to do some dry firing drills. And your first action for the dry firing drill, put your hands in your pockets. And when the beep sounds, your beep is not to draw the weapon. The beep is to drop down and do 5 burpees and then draw your weapon. And so do that. Start creating some fatigue, start creating some complexity in the sense of what you've got to do before you do the actual draw. Well, now you're doing complexity that you don't normally do. And what you'll if you do that 5 or 10 times, on that 11th or 12th or 13th time that you just relax, put your hands in your pockets, and then on the beep, you draw, it's going to take away all of the nonsense because now you're studying other nonsense in front of the draw. And you're starting to form the pattern of, oh my goodness, look at the gong show that I've put in front of my draw. I don't need all of that stuff. I'm tired of doing burpees before I have to draw. I'm going to get rid of burpees and just draw. Well, burpees are the equivalent of the jazz hands that you've got going of the lucky rabbit's foot moment.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I'm going to integrate that because I want to be better.
Right? Everyone should want to be better.
And I want to be a better pistolier. I want to be a better jiu-jitsu player. I want to be a better human. I want to be a better me. So
and by focusing on becoming better with the weapon, you're focusing on being better at life.
And jiu-jitsu and everything else and everything else. It all plays into each other. We're just over an hour. I got a couple comments that I'm going to read out real quick. But first off, Saj says, does your game change depending on your type of partner you're rolling with, i.e. structure, size, strength, etc.? Quick answer, no.
Yes, it does.
But yeah, I think that, we can talk about that another day because that's a good
another
question.
day. Yeah, agreed. It's a good question.
Chris said, I couldn't even use the correct finger when asking Shaun about a shot. Well, that's just him seeing the video made me nervous. Note, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm talking about, is that there are levels to the game, right? As we were talking about last time, is that there are going to be people that are just beginning. There's going to be people that have been doing it for years, and there are levels to that game. And then
Oh, sorry, Dorito Ninja.
Yeah, he called you a Dorito Ninja.
I love that. One thing about Chris's comment there is if he'd have just shot that video for himself, he wouldn't have been nervous. He wouldn't have been worried about where his finger is or where his finger isn't or where his magazine is, or is he, even wearing the right colored shirt. He wouldn't think about any of those things. But because he knows that someone's going to be putting eyes on that, is going to be reviewing that, is going to be considering that, is going to be quote unquote judging him on that. Now he's nervous. Now he's making mistakes. Now he's this, that, and the other thing. And so what does that tell you? That tells you that as soon as an external observer is involved in the process, now you're paying more attention. Now you're more self-conscious. Now you're more self-aware. Now you're worried about what others will see. And those are the things, if you're worried about what they're seeing, those are the things that you should be working on so that they can see what you're thinking. Oh, I don't want them to see that. The external observer always raises our game. And that's the beauty of not doing things in isolation. You can make yourself better, but the moment that you have a team around you looking at your performance, now you definitely want to do better. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Got to step your game up.
Got to step your personal game up and then get involved with a team that expects you to step your game up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the points of the collective, right? So that we can all look at each other and push each other to be better versions of ourselves.
Agreed.
And, with that, we're a few minutes over. Chris, last comment says,
yes, it was Herbie Hancock. That's right. It was Rocket.
There you go.
Dude, listen, Chance Burles, you immediately need to watch that song and then think about your pistoleering.
The funny thing is that the moment you said the robot and you started doing this, I was like, jazz hands, and I'm
Jazz
like that.
hands.
Oh, geez, yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna go watch that video, and it's probably it'll
Oh
help.
yeah, it'll make you laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all we got for today. That was a good conversation. We
Yeah, it's
crossed
good
quite a
chat,
bit,
buddy.
and
Yeah.
we're looking forward to tomorrow. I have a special guest for
Oh,
you.
I love special guests. Dude, you're the special guest.
I am special.
You are.
But yeah, that's I'm looking forward to it. I actually have most of this week scheduled out, so you're gonna be
Okay, good.
I got
I
some
love
good
it. I
stuff.
I know that you like scheduling, so I'm glad that you found your scheduling routine. It's good.
Gotta find my
You're
groove.
happy. I
Yeah.
like your groove. Get your groove on, Chance Burles.
Well, that's all we got for today. So join us tomorrow for more awesome information, more awesome conversation, more learning, more building, more growing with us here at the collective. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
See you
Chimo.
tomorrow. Chimo.